Colleague, Senator Daines.
Chairman, thank you. Ambassador Tai, thanks for coming here today. Think about 95% of our world consumers live outside the United States, and as a guy who represents a state where agriculture is the #1 economic driver, it's very important that we get market access for agriculture, for the sake of our jobs. And I don't think it can be overstated the importance we think about the future of agriculture. Ambassador Tai, the U.S.-China Economic and Security Review Commission recently published recommendations on how to counter China's growing abuse of intellectual property. I think it's stating the obvious here, but protecting American IP is something I've long fought for, including introducing this bipartisan Protecting IP Act to give the USTR more tools so you can be more effective to push back against China's abuse. I plan to reintroduce this bill to include some of USCC's recent recommendations. You'll be seeing that soon. The question is, what actions have you taken to implement USCC's recommendations, and how have you worked to counter China's growing intellectual property abuses?
So, Senator Daines, I may need a brush up on the USCC's mandate, but I know that the USCC, unlike the other commission, is here to advise Congress as opposed to advising both the Congress and executive. That said, I do stay apprised of this commission's work and deeply respect the diligence and the rigor that they bring to their work. In terms of intellectual property, this is actually the basis for the Section 301 action that the Trump administration took in 2018. And as you may know, we are currently undertaking an exercise at USTR, a comprehensive 4-year review of the actions taken pursuant to that 301 with respect to how effective we have been in securing improvements in behavior, and that is something that we are doing right now.
So I do have a concern. The USTR is not enforcing some existing agreements, and I'll talk about this in a moment here regarding Japan. Agreements that support U.S. companies, U.S. products, U.S. intellectual property. In Japan, they'll take antitrust action against American tech companies, but then they'll support policies that crowd out competition for the United States, despite commitments that have been made in the Japan Digital Trade Agreement. We see this in the gaming market, where Japan appears to ignore some of these anti-competitive actions from Japanese companies, which suppress some of our major U.S. providers. I think this is a violation of its digital trade commitments, but yet we haven't seen action from the USTR, and perhaps you can settle that here. Ambassador Tai, will you commit to raising this imbalance with Japan and commit to increase enforcement in support of U.S. companies? And the gaming is one example.
So, Senator Daines, this is the second time this particular issue has come up in today's hearing, and so I'm sure that I have team members who are already working on this and pulling information for me. Let me take this back and learn more about it, okay. And I will get back to you.
That's a fair answer, and that's one of the purposes of some of these hearings is to raise these issues and to work together here to accomplish better outcomes here for U.S. companies. Lastly, I've called on presidents of both parties. This has been a bipartisan challenge, whether it's been a Democrat president or Republican president, to re-engage on the Trans-Pacific Partnership. I believe that's a strategic, important direction we should head, both for economic benefits, but I think it's also part of our strategy to counter China in the Indo-Pacific region, as has been advancing alternative agreements without the United States. I'm concerned about the current administration's lack of ambition as it relates to its trade agenda and the absence of market access commitments to, as you've said a few times, level that playing field and increase opportunities. And I look through the lens here representing Montana for our farmers, ranchers, and small businesses. So just as a closing statement, this won't be a question, I just urge you to shift course, prioritize reducing some of these unfair tariffs, other barriers to trade in IPEF, and pursue some more ambitious trade agreements with partners around the world. I think it's a great opportunity. You see it, and thanks for being here today.
Thank my colleague, Senator Brown, who really showed the Congress over the years how to come up with responsible enforcement practices so that we could say we're for trade, we're for good paying jobs.